Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to get into some exciting cosplay. Yay! Today I'm going to be starting my Anastasia, the Broadway version. I'm going to be doing the bodice for her today. And maybe get into the skirt, but we'll see what happens. Um, and as you can see here, I have the basically the mock-up fabric all ready to go. If you came from my TikTok um, page, channel, whatever, you already know I don't like working with patterns at all. So I like kind of draping my patterns so that they can fit my body a little bit more. And with this dress form, it is a little bit smaller than me, but because I have been sewing for a while, I can alter these patterns, these mock-ups or these mock-up patterns to make sure that it fits me. This is at its like full, um, which is I think 40, 33, and 40, 43, I think. So it's at its full measurement as far as it can go for this dress form. I'm a little bit bigger, but again, I am going to mock it up so that I could wear. So for this walkthrough, while I am not that good at explaining things, I will try and do a little bit of explanations while I'm doing this. Just in case you guys want to follow along. Now, I'm not that good with measurements or math or anything like that. I just kind of go by eye and by how I feel as though it should look on me with the outcome. I know that there are some people that know how to get into like the details, schematics of everything, and that's just not me. I just like to go by what I see. So if you guys have any questions, you could always just post it below and I can try to answer it. But other than that, let's just get into making making the bodice. So here I am going to start lining up my fabric for the bodice, and I'm going to make sure that it is even, because what is eventually going to happen is that I'm going to end up cutting, I guess, two pieces, one for one side, one for the other side, and I want those two pieces to kind of match each other. As you can see, what I am doing is I am lining the front of the bodice so that I can make that plunging V shape. I am planning on making it about 4 inches um, wide at the base of the triangle. Um, so it wouldn't be too wide, but it also wouldn't be too narrow. Eventually, I am going to move the fabric back to the center and then just draw out that V. I feel as though it's a little bit more simpler to do that rather than to just make it from the fabric, since I'm going to be drawing out everything anyways. As you can see, I did with the V there. I am also going to cut out the extra fabric, which is at the bottom of the dress, to help with the draping a little bit. This isn't the best draping fabric that I would use. In my opinion, I would use a more sturdy fabric, but this is just what I had at the time, and I didn't want to buy extra fabric, so this is what I'm just going to use. And it's not for the final piece, so I don't care as much. But anyways, right now I am, cutting out everything, making sure everything is parallel and straight. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a dart. I'm also going to get down because my back started hurting at that point, which at that point my knees started hurting, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I am going to make a dart for the front part of the bodice, which I was very indecisive of keeping in at the time, because I didn't really want my bodice to have a dart, but I just went ahead and kept it in there. Um, but yeah, what I'm doing here is I'm just drawing out the kind of like an outline on the dress form that is already, formed. That is already being formed onto the dress form. So that way, when I cut it out and sew it back, um, it can fit on the dress form evenly. I am also cutting out a little armhole for the fabric so that it can lay more flat onto the dress form. Also, I realize that I am going to be posting this late, like literally the next on a Friday instead of a Saturday, which I was supposed to be posting this like last Saturday, but it got away from me and I got a little bit too anxious about my trip, so I realized that I had to take a little bit of a break before going back to making videos. But I will have it posted hopefully tonight, or at least tomorrow morning. But we'll see what happens. But anyways, I am pinning. I just pinned up the dart, and I'm drawing out the side piece or the side front piece and the side back piece. And then once those are done or everything is drawn out to my liking, I am going to take it off the dress form and then start cutting it out, as well as cutting off any extra fabric that I need to cut off, as you can see here. And I do also want to make sure, at least you want to make sure, that the fabric or the bodice pattern that you are cutting out ends at the length that you want it. For me, I want it to be at 15 inches, but it could be at whatever length that you choose. Hey guys, so I have finished cutting out or drawing up my pattern. So now what I'm going to do is just cut it out. After I've cut it out, I am going to go back onto my dress form and make sure that it fits onto my form. Once it's fit onto my form, I'm going to use this red cotton as a mock-up to do kind of like a first test for the final the final outcome, is which is when I cut it out and sew it onto the taffeta. For mock-ups and for patterns such as this, I do tend to hand sew it. With a contrast or a thread that does not match the color of the fabric, just so that I can know where everything is going to line up at, as far as the curve of the dress, or in this case for the bodice, as far as the curve of the bodice. And it will also let me know where I have to make any adjustments at for the bodice. Here right now I'm just outlining a little bit darker what I did before, and I'm also going to measure out to make sure it fits the measurements that I wanted before I made this pattern. So right here, for example, the length of the bodice, I do want it to be 15, because that's how long it is from the top of my chest all the way down to my upper hip. You do want to make sure that that is accurate, because you don't want your bodice to be one, too short, or too long, because it can mess up the costume altogether. So for this, I'm just going to make sure that everything goes all the way down to 15 and a half, because I am going to give it a half-inch seam allowance when I sew, or when I hand sew it, of course. Here you are seeing me darken the lines a little bit. So when I cut them out, I won't be squinting, or I don't accidentally cut something or make the piece larger than what it needs to be, so I can sew it perfectly to put it back on the dress form. Okay, so since everything for the back is all lined up, I can go ahead and cut that out. I do also want to make sure that after I've cut it out, it does match up with the measurements that I have. Again, so because let's just say for my bust, it's going to be 43. I always cut that into four parts, which is going to be the front, side back, and um, back. And for this case, I am also going to be doing two side backs and two backs, because on the inside of the bodice, I'm going to be adding a corset to help with the shape of the dress, and also to help with kind of like holding the bodice, because it is going to be a very heavy dress, and I'm going to eventually, when it's all said and done, it's all going to be connected into one. It's going to be very heavy, so having some extra support is really going to help. So yeah, I want to make sure that the side back and the back are as accurate as possible, so that when I go and cut it out, um, I can get, of course, an accurate measurement, as well as it fits nice, so I don't feel like I'm squeezing or it's too loose or anything like that. And because it's a custom piece, it's custom for me. I don't. It shouldn't be that hard of a thing to do. But yeah, let's go ahead and cut out the back piece. It's kind of bad idea to do it while on tablecloth, but the table under this looks way terrible, so here we are. Um, and eventually I do want to add some extra, like an extra inch or so to the side of this for the zipper. Because the inside, while the inside is going to be a corset, the outside is going to be zipped up. And so I do want to add an extra inch or two to the back part, just so that I can have that extra fabric there for the zipper. And right here, I have it all cut out. This is my side back, and this is going to be my back. I'm going to write that down somewhere, because it will get mixed up. Side back. And all right. Now on to the second important, well, this is basically the first important part of the bodice, because this is where you're going to be seeing this is the first thing that you see when I walk in, so you want to make sure that everything looks nice. This is going to be the side, front, and the front. With this one, as you saw at the beginning, I tried to adjust it, but then I ended up just drawing a line. That line is going to make it so it's going to be a deep V, and it's going to be a very deep V. It's going to be basically from the top of my chest all the way down, because that's just the design that I decided that I like the most for Anastasia. This is 15. So when I did that, I really wanted to make sure that it made it as dramatic as possible. I've also added a dart here, which eventually the dart won't be there. when I cut out the final pattern. And the dart won't be there because everything at that point will be, I guess, catered to my body. So when I cut this out, and I told you guys I'm so very bad at explaining things, but when I cut this out and I do the mock-ups and I do the fitting and I do everything like that, she will not be there because it's going to be fitted to me, if that makes sense. But yeah, this is going to be her. Okay. And they're very faint, which is why I'm drawing over them. But also, side note, make sure you iron out your fabric. I didn't iron out my fabric because I don't have an iron. I only have a steamer, and it just wasn't going to work well. But iron out your fabric. Anyways, you can't see it, but because the lines are very faint, which is why I'm drawing over them. You can see where I have drawn out the line for it. It goes all the way down to 15 for the V's. So when I cut it out, when I cut it out, it's gonna go all the way down. And this is why I also like using extra fabric, because it's kind of like a trial and error that I can use while I have it now, rather than using the actual fabric. Because once you mess up with the actual fabric, yeah, you can have extra fabric to use, but you also don't want to risk it. So playing with kind of like old fabric that you have laying around is best before you do anything else. So we're just gonna cut out the side front. And again, make sure you label everything, because take it from me, you will lose a piece or use a piece the wrong way. Then you gotta undo it, and it's not fun. It's not the fun sewing that you want. So with this one, I'm gonna take the darts out, make sure that they all line up. And cut off any extra fabric. And for the plunging, I don't necessarily want to add that much of a seam allowance because it won't really require that much of a seam allowance. I am adding kind of like a mesh panel in the middle just because of how deep it is. So I'm kind of going to just probably do a little bit of, take a little bit of the fabric off of the edge on the inside, because again, when it comes to plunging necklines, I don't really add that a seam allowance or that much of a seam allowance, because all you're doing is just hemming it essentially. So I have the bodice cut out here. Now it doesn't even look like a bodice, I know. Which is why I have the dart here, that I am going to measure out real quick just to make sure that we are all on the same page. And then once I do that, I'm going to hand sew everything. together and then put it back on my form to make sure that it fits the way it needs to. And you probably are wondering why, or you're probably wondering why I always say that I don't like patterns. It's not that I don't like patterns. I don't like the manufacturer, like the simplicity of the McCall's patterns, because while they are great, easy to access patterns, their instructions always are not always as clear. Especially when you're a beginner sewer, you don't really understand what is needed um, for a specific thing. Like, for instance, if you're trying to make a jumpsuit, they make the explanations, they try and dumb down the explanations so much that it makes it difficult for you to understand, which is why I don't like using them, and which is why I don't really like buy patterns as much anymore. I do still have some patterns that I use, but if anything, I just find free patterns that are online because their instructions are a little bit they're easier to read, and they're by people who sew. Um, which is I don't know who runs Simplicity or who run these pattern companies, but I don't know if they sew. I think they have put so much jargon into what they're trying to do. It just does not make sense. But anyways, I have my pieces all out, cut out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hand sew it. And the next time you see me, we will be back at the dress form, making sure everything. Hey guys, welcome back to my dress form. As you can see, new shirt, new day. I kind of got lazy, and so I just carried it on to the next day. Anyways, this is the outcome of the mock-up pattern that I made for the dress form. As you can see, it fits well. It is a little bit loose in the bodice area, which is technically good because I have to make it for my size. So if it is this large, that will be fine. But anyways, like I said before, this the bodice is going to be composed of 4 different parts. So it's going to have the front, we're going to have the side front, side back, and back. And so as you can see, everything fits well on here. This one is a little bit a little short at the top, but that will be okay when we go and do the actual measurements for my body type. That will all be adjusted. Now, I don't know if you can see it clearly, but the stitches are showing, but that is okay. It was hand sewn, so so it could have like an easier removal for me. I did do a back stitch, I guess, for this, and that just makes it easier to hold it up for like a temporary stitch, and then I can get rid of it later when I go and make the pattern. For here, I do kind of like how I did this. I think it works well. I am planning to have like a total of 4-inch space down from the chest, look kind of like a triangle. So it's going to start out at 4 inches and go all the way down. And I think that this space is good enough for that look. So now what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is unstitch this, and I'm going to unstitch this, and then I'm going to measure it so that it fits my pattern, or no, my body, so that the next time that it is on here, it is going to be a little bit loose, but again, that's okay because it's fitting me. And I am deciding to keep the dart here. I just think that it's going to look a little, it's going to look nice when it comes to the full outcome of it. Um, but yeah, let's just get started with undoing this and putting it on. We're gonna do it on red cotton, and we're gonna do both sides. So let's go ahead and do that. Now what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is I'm going to unstitch the thread, which is a good reason why I put it in a different color, just to make it easier for me to unstitch. But I'm going to unstitch the pattern pieces so that I can go ahead and use these pattern pieces as a guide to make a pattern for myself, which I am going to make a little bit larger so that it can fit me and not the dress form this time. Okay, so now that I have all of my patterns or my pattern pieces cut out, what I'm going to do is I did write down my measurements, and I kind of divided them into four, which will be perfect for this, um, because they're four pieces of the pattern. And so once I have that all cut out, or yeah, once I have them all cut out, I'm gonna sew them together with a sewing machine. Um, that way, I can fit it to my body and do any corrections that I may need to. But yeah, let's get started with that. Originally, I was going to plan to show the whole thing with this, but it was like 6 minutes long, and I honestly I wouldn't sit through that. So I'm only going to show you guys about 3 minutes of me basically resizing the pattern that I made for my dress form and putting it onto the red cotton and resizing it for my body type. What I did for each pattern was I think I made it about 2 inches bigger. Um, all around based off of the measurements that were already made. I made about 2 inches bigger or an inch and a half bigger, just so that I can have about a half inch to an inch of seam allowance for it. Eventually or inevitably, it did ended up bigger for me, so I had to basically take it in. I didn't show that part, but I did have to take it in so that I can fit me well, because again, I am going to be making a corset to go to be sewn inside of this bodice, so I do want it to fit very nice on me. But yeah, as you can see, I am resizing the bodice pieces so that I could go ahead and cut it out and sew it. And as you can see, the next video, I will be sewing it with a different thread, and I will be doing this up until I have to sew the actual piece, just so that I can know where everything lays and where I have to adjust things. And I feel as though that's a great tip or tool to use when sewing, just because um, sometimes pencils and sewing marks, they're not always best, especially for my vision and for me to keep a track of. So I like using fabric that is opposite of the color of fabric that I'm using, just so that I can again keep track of where my sewing lines are going. I can't remember what the technical term for that, but I think it is sewing lines. But it's whatever. But yeah, this is me sewing. if you are going to get into sewing and especially making patterns for yourself, I would say invest in getting a dress form, especially one that is your body size. This one, the red one that I have shown here, was originally by body size, but I'm a little bit hesitant on getting a new one. But eventually I may get another one. It just all depends on when and if I'm going to cave and actually get another one. Um, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start sewing the bodice of the sewing the bodice of Anastasia's dress. And this is going to be the mock-up for me to put on. I am going to only show you guys the end result again because I feel this video is already long enough and it doesn't really have that much explanation, so I don't think it should be that long in the first place. But anyways, I'm only going to show you guys just the half of it, which is basically going to be that half that I take off, unstitch, and then use on the taffeta to make sure that it fits well. When I put it on for the, I guess, finishing piece. But as you can see here, I am sewing it with white and black thread. You don't necessarily have to use two different threads. I just decided to use two different threads because I was lazy. But I am using a thread that can be seen with red fabric. But yeah, I'm just going to sew these out, and then off screen I'm going to do a little bit of tailoring to take it in some places so that it can fit nice on my body. I do want you guys to also take notice of the tension and how hard it is on the fabric and on the thread. Make sure that when you guys are sewing, just a little tip, that the tension on the thread is okay, just so you don't have to deal with those wrinkles, because it can mess up the garment or the look of the garment, as well as it can make the thread snap when you try and put the garment on. But that's just a little sewing tip that I never follow myself because I'm always rushing to make the mock-up at least. Okay, and here is going to be the finishing of the mock-up. Again, it is loose because it doesn't fit the dress form, but it fits me. In my next video, I will be showing you the cutting it out and putting it on the taffeta. It's either going to be that video or it's going to be me panicking about going to Japan again. But either way, I'll see you guys next time.